I've got a ripper of a guest today here on Craig the Third. His name is Mark Schaefer. Mark is a marketing strategy consultant to many of the world's leading brands. He's also an acclaimed keynote speaker and a college educator. He's the best-selling author of 10 books, including Marketing Rebellion, Known, and Belonging to the Brand, among others. He's just released a brand new book called Audacious, How Humans Win in an AI Marketing World. Mark, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. And I've got to use that word more often, a ripper. That's a great phrase. It's a great adjective. Great adjective.
Well, I've set the bar now. This has got to be a ripper interview. Now, Mark, I want to get into the book shortly and how people who have been, professionals who have been in the professional trenches for, 30 plus years, how they can start becoming more audacious in their life and with their business. But really, I want to set some context, really, because you're doing all of these things. You have got running it seems from the outside, a very streamlined portfolio career. You're a speaker, you're a university lecturer, and you get paid for speaking, not just doing it for fun. You write books, so, another income stream. You consult, you coach, you do other things as well, which we can get into. But this career, though, is relatively new for you. You didn't start writing your first blog post until you were 50 years old.
Yeah, most of my career was actually in the corporate world. And I left to start my own business. I think I was 49, something like that, when I started my own business. And that was at a time when social media was really getting hot. It was taking off, and I knew to be an effective teacher, to be an effective consultant, I needed to immerse myself in this world. And so on a whim, I started a blog. And the interesting thing about starting later in life like that, it was actually a tremendous advantage because I had this unique, informed perspective that a lot of people didn't have, especially in the early days of social media. Most of the people were, maybe they were a salesperson or a customer service person somewhere, and here I come in with all these years of experience, and I think that unique perspective and the experience I had really propelled my career.
And was this sort of, you wanting to educate yourself more so you could be a better consultant, etc. Was there any grand plan at this stage?
Well, yeah. I mean, the grand plan was not to become Mark Schaefer, the personal brand. I'll tell you that. That was not a plan. In fact, I resisted it. I resisted it. I didn't even have my picture on my website until 2016. And around 2016, I sort of gave up and thought, they want me. They don't really care about my business. They want me. So let's step out a little bit. My plan was, I love marketing strategy. That is my sweet spot. Really, sometime in my 30s, I would say, Trevor, I realized that I had an ability to see how trends come together. People might be immersed in A and they might be immersed in B, and I can say, hey, wait a minute, it's going to lead to C. That's where we need to be next. And that helps in marketing. That really helps a lot. So so marketing strategy and being able to see the next step, maybe being able to discern where people need to be has been a great advantage. And that's really what I love. So strategy is where it all started. And then sometime, I think it was around 2017 or so, the lines crossed where I started making more money off of speaking than off of consulting. And it kind of goes back and forth, year to year, depending on the contracts. But I actually have, I think I counted one time, I have 24 different income streams.
Wow.
Only 3 or 4 make a big difference. But things happen, and you can get a little passive income, and so you say yes.
So, I mean, it's an incredible story, and I think people who are listening to this or watching, if it's watching it on YouTube, is that, it's never too late to start. And really, the secret sauce, which I see and I've experienced myself, is the fact that you go out and share your knowledge and create content. That's the kicker, isn't it? I mean, you could have stayed a consultant and not blogged, and your world would be a very, very different one.
Yeah, that you nailed it on the head. I mean, it really is about consistency. It's about generosity, and it's about this non-intuitive idea of giving away your knowledge,
Yep.
giving away your ideas. It seems like, well, why would you do that? Aren't you supposed to charge people for that? But that's what builds thought leadership. That's
Yep.
what builds trust, and that's what attracts people to me, because they know I'm trying to do my best. I'm trying to discern the truth about the world. I'm genuinely trying to help teach people, help them navigate this overwhelming world that we live in today, especially if you're in, sales and marketing and PR, the changes going on. And so that has built, I think, goodwill and credibility, and that's led to the success. I've never spent one dime on advertising. It's all been the consistency. I believe it was 680 weeks without missing a blog post. And then I took a break for COVID, and when I got sick, and then I think, and I haven't missed since then. So I don't know, I haven't counted it, but I'm probably up to another 180 weeks or so since COVID. And consistency is more important than genius.
Yeah, and as you said, you use the word, like when you've been in the trenches for a long time, you've got that experience and those skills and knowledge, and you've got wisdom, and you're willing to share it, whether that's through video or writing or podcasting or mix of those modalities. The wonderful thing is that, you're exploring ideas in public, you're bringing people along for the journey, and that's, you're much better placed to be perceived as a genuine thought leader versus, the people who probably sit around and talk about it and trumpet themselves loudly, but actually don't get around to, doing any of the sorts of things that you do. So, and I think the book's a testament to that. I mean, when was your first book? 52?
Yes.
Were you Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I was 52, I think, yeah.
And you've got, is this the 10th or the 11th?
11th, yeah.
The 11th. All right. Well and truly into double figures now. So let's get into the book. Thank you for that background, Mark. And it is a great story, and I do encourage people to check out your blog. Just go to businessesgrow.com. Mark has gone past the fact that he is the personal brand, but the business URL exists still. Businesses Grow is the name of the blog and the business. Mark, the new book, Audacious, walk us through it. I think it's one of your most powerful ones yet. I've only got it a week ago and got right into it. And you're pushing boundaries, my friend.
Well, I've never been more excited about a project in my life. I mean, I've been so blessed, Trevor, really, being involved in so many interesting things over my career. But this book was different for me because, as you mentioned, I've written 10 previous books, and every time I write a book, by the time I'm finished and I turn in that manuscript, I am completely exhausted. I mean, I've given everything. It's just psychologically, even physically, I'm broken and tired and worn out. This book energized me. This book, I couldn't wait to write it every day. When this book was over, I turned to my wife. I said, I'm sad this is over. And the reason is because, first of all, I truly believe this is the right book at the right time. And what always pushes me in every book I write is this going to help people? Is this going to help solve an issue that people are struggling with every day now? And it is. And the other thing that energized me, which was unique, is that this book introduced me into a whole new world of creative people, creative geniuses that I typically I'm just not in that world. And to be connected to these people and to hear about their ideas and their struggles and their devotion really to standing out above the noise was really inspiring for me. And that has turned into the case studies in the book, the very practical, inspiring ideas in the book. The book is filled with hundreds of ideas. and I, this is something funny just came to mind. So there was a friend of mine, a woman, she's a vice president of marketing for a company, and she was a beta reader for the book. So a beta reader is someone who reads the book before it's published just to make sure I'm on track and I'm not confusing people. and she said, as she was reading the book and seeing all the ideas, she said, I want to hug these people and thank them for being so generous to give all these ideas, because they really are sharing decades and decades of wisdom at a time when we need it. So it's a remarkable book.
So it's called Audacious, but the subtitle, and often with business books, the subtitle is what it says in the tin: How
Right.
Humans Win in an AI Marketing World. And while your background's marketing, and it is around marketing for brands, big and small,
Yeah.
I will say, there's a lot of examples of tiny brands as well. This is, I reckon, the thinking that you put in this can be put across facets of our life and our business more generally.
Absolutely. And the thing that I struggled with is, I'm a realist. I'm a realist. I'm a very practical person. And here's, I didn't sugarcoat anything in this book. And I basically said, if you're in a job and you're competent, you're in trouble. Because AI is competent in many areas now. It's more than competent.
Yeah.
And so we've got to have a little courage here. We've got to dig down deep and find something new. You are not. This is the first time, maybe in history, Trevor, where we face this technological change, and we can't increase our skills to be relevant. You can't take a new class and be smarter than AI. We're facing this world where we're going to have abundant, universal, nearly perfect wisdom, information, intelligence. And that's a new type of competition. And so you can't outsmart AI. You have to out-human AI. And our world right now is not built for that. The business world basically rewards competence. It rewards the easy route. It rewards the thing that gets approved by the legal department. That's just not enough if we're going to thrive and survive and transcend the bots.
So if we live in a world where attention is scarce, trust is even scarcer, I always think that the smaller end of town, the business spectrum, the more entrepreneurial side, has got the edge today.
Absolutely.
The owners can be out there, the leaders, the founders. Even if you're running a solo business, we've got solo businesses that are six figures. Because technology's allowed us to scale our knowledge, our expertise, and our wisdom, and so this is a great opportunity. That's why I was great to get you on, because I think that, particularly people who maybe as you get a bit deeper into your career or into your business life, there's a tendency to be a little more conservative, maybe, not for everyone, but, there is a bit of a tendency for that. How important is it for people just to stay up with it and relevant and doing stuff and experimenting and failing and all of that as part of their day-to-day, let's stay relevant goal?
There's two things I'd like to say, and I want to come back to an earlier point you made, and I didn't interrupt you because you were on a roll. I was talking about sharing your wisdom, sharing your wisdom, and I think everyone, even young people, have an inherent wisdom because they have their own experiences, they have their own education, they have the things that they've gone through in their lives. Every individual really doesn't have a competitor. There's only one you. But the thing that makes you different is having the courage to talk about it. That's not easy. That wisdom is part of it, but it's the courage to share it, right?
Yep.
And that could be scary. So I think I wanted just to build on that idea. And wisdom is really about insight. What is insight? It's a revelation. It's not necessarily something that makes you seem like a genius. It could be, look, I made this mistake. I don't want you to make this mistake.
Yep.
Here's what I would have done better. Or I experienced this thing that may be joyful today. I want to share this with you, right? It's sharing your human experience. It's content that approaches art. And this is a very important idea because art is the expression of human experience. It's beyond competent, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create something that celebrates the human experience, that ignites the human fireworks. That is where we're going to stand out as we try to, survive and thrive and be relevant in this world of AI.
Yeah, I like how you said that. I mean, that it is the courage to put yourself out there, and I mean, to be honest, I mean, being audacious, you can be creative,
Yeah.
but you can also be raw and you can be authentic.
Yeah.
What that's me thinking about audacious. You've written the book. What does audacious mean to you?
Audacious. That's funny because I'm just starting to do interviews, so that literally is the first time anybody's asked me the question. I think the thing that most people, when they think about audacious, they might think of something like vast and overwhelming and unexpected.
Yep.
But it's not necessarily that. To me, audacious is something that creates a moment of awe in your life. And so I studied a lot about this, actually devoted a whole chapter of it in the book. And a revelation for me was realizing that there's this thing called everyday awe. It's this thing called collective effervescence. That it's things that you can experience just in your everyday life, especially when you're with other people, that create this little sense of awe. So one way to think about how do we out-human the bots is, what if we lived a life where we thought, today for my business, I want to add more awe. What would that be like? And so the book sort of takes you through those steps.
Yep.
Awe to me, audacious to me, it doesn't necessarily have to be a stunt. It's not something that's reckless. It's not something dangerous or against the law. It doesn't have to be something that's expensive, but it has to be something that makes a difference, that makes an impact on a person, to make them go, oh, wow, never thought of that before. I appreciate that person in a new way, because that was audacious.
Have you got some examples you'd like to share about that, whether it's big, small, or indifferent?
Well, so, and at first I want to emphasize that this idea of standing out above the bots is a big, big topic with
Yes.
with a lot of ways of could have gone. And this is just one exploration. I mean, another route that I've gone on, and that I still am passionate about today is the personal brand, right? Being known, being the human person to go to when you don't know who to trust in this world of deepfakes is another way to go. But this idea of creating something audacious is it's another path. It's just another thing to think about. And the way I broke this out in the book is, as I mentioned, I had this extraordinary experience to meet and interview some of the greatest creative geniuses in the world. These are the people who are winning the big awards everywhere around the world. And I saw their work starting to fit into a pattern. And the pattern is this. So most marketing, most advertising, most public relations is boring. It's dull. We're in a pandemic of dull, and AI is making it worse. And so what we need to do is look at what's normal, what's our normal expectation about a story, and then is there a way to distort that in a way? What about where we tell the story? A blog is a blog is a blog is a blog. But what if we told a story in a different place that made people, pay attention in a new way? And then third, what about the storyteller? And this is very important because I'm sure you're familiar with the famous Edelman Trust Barometer. And the Edelman Trust Barometer looks at what do we trust all over the world. And I think they're up to maybe 70 or 75 different countries. And it showed that the trust in organizations and advertising has declined 15 or 16 years in a row. Yeah. But who do we trust? We still trust each other. We trust founders. We trust technical experts. And it varies some by country. But generally, we trust our friends, our family, our neighbors, and thought leaders. And so the real marketing mindset today isn't necessarily to say we're great and look at what we're doing. The great mindset today is to do something so interesting, so generous, so unmissable that other people can't wait to talk about it. Yep. Because those are the great storytellers, and that is what is believed. So that's the framework of the book. To look at very specific, like I said, hundreds of ideas to disrupt the story, where the story is told, and who tells the story.
The interesting thing, and what I know about you, and reading your stuff for very many years, and we've spoken numerous times on this podcast, but is the whole notion of curiosity, and it's a theme I keep coming back to because I think it's probably the greatest attribute any of us can have. And 100%. I feel like you've got to feed your curiosity. It's a muscle. Yeah. You've got to, it's a way of being. This book, and it was only, as I said, you've launched it today. I don't know if that's the official, but the email came out today. Mm-hmm. And you tell the story about the photo that changed your life. And but this is, I want to go a bit deeper in this. I'll get you to tell the story, but I want to go a bit deeper in this because the fact is there's little things that was quite big for you, but there are little things that are happening around us all the time. And if we take notice of them, if we create content about them, if we join dots, we can bring things to life. And clearly they've got to be things that you take notice of. They could be, as you say, probably moments of awe, that something that gives us something to talk about. If we can be aware of these things and be curious all the time and have our antenna up, that can change our life completely. So this photo changed your life, took you in a whole different direction. Why don't you tell us that story?
Well, it was remarkable. It really was. And and I love this comment on curiosity. You just got my wheels turning, Trevor, as you often do, because it is so important. And so I was at South by Southwest, and South by Southwest is it's basically a conference of thought leaders in Austin, Texas every year. And that's where I go to feed my curiosity because there's just so many brilliant people there. Well, I was at dinner after a long day of being at this event, a very nice bistro, and all of a sudden, people stood up and left the restaurant. They just left their food. It was just surreal. And my back was to the door, so I turned around and looked out the window to see what is going on. And all these people were standing on the street. And there wasn't a parade. There wasn't any music. So my two friends and I, we left our food. And we left our cold cocktails, and we went out to sea. So this, I think, it's either 3 or 4 years ago this happened. So we look up in the sky, and there's a drone show. And drone shows are a little more common today. They can be associated with a music festival or even a big sporting event or something. But this was the first drone show we had ever seen. And the drone show was an advertisement for a new television show. And at the end of the ad, there was a QR code in the sky. And so for weeks, this haunted me. It haunted me because as you mentioned early in our discussion, I mean, for the last 15 years, really, I've devoted my life to researching and thinking and writing about how do we stand out above the noise in this overwhelming world. This is what we every person listening to your show today, they want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be noticed. They want to be discovered. We all do. And it's harder and harder to do that. And here, I did this mind game with myself. If someone said, Mark, we want you to create an ad so great that people would leave their food in a restaurant to go see it. Not just see it, but record it on their phone and share it with the world. Could you do it? No, I could not. It just haunted me how great this was, how just exceptional. It was, and the word that kept pounding in my head was audacious. This was audacious. So my curiosity led me to the agency who did this thing. Happened to be some people I had met before. I had featured them actually in my Marketing Rebellion book. So I called up the president of the company and I said, I want to know, what was behind this thinking? Is there a process? Is there an element here that we could scale for other businesses? I want to come to your agency. I want to sit in your meetings. I want to see how you do this. I want you to reveal all of your secrets, and I want to put it in a book. And he said to me, absolutely. And that led me on the journey. So it gets right back to the curiosity, right? It wasn't just looking at this thing saying this is cool. It was being haunted by it in a way that I just couldn't rest, because it just opened up so many other questions. And if I could answer those questions, it would help so many people. And making that connection with Mark Simons, the president of Giant Spoon, because of him, that opened doors for me to talk to people who never would have returned my calls. and that really created the depth, the richness, and the beauty of this book.
I want to pick up on something there. What you've done is you've literally called them and gone in, and luckily there was a connection before, but it doesn't. The fact of the matter is, I know your life is built on connections, and connections have come from content and interviews and books and speaking and all of that sort of stuff, and that's the important stuff. I mean, if we want to go back to what's going to what's going to win for you in the end over AI, it's connection, isn't it? Human connection, and that manifests itself in so many different ways. I just wanted to rush in and highlight that. But the fact is, then you took it 1, 2, 3 steps further, and then you got momentum for it. And I guess there's that side of things. So you took action. But the other thing was, and I'm of this belief, I believe you are just by listening to you. When you write a book, it's not like I have to have a book written by such a date and you just find a concept and do it. You use the word haunt. I mean, an idea will come to you over a period of time. The idea will percolate for maybe years. You'll join dots, all your experience, your expertise and knowledge that come to the fore, and then an idea just keeps hammering at you until you do something about it. And then eventually that becomes a book. I want to ask the question, do you actually write about these things first and then they're likely to become more fully formed in the book through the art of writing blog posts?
Oh boy, that's a great question. And it's a little bit of both. So I've been very consistent in that I've written a book about every 2 years. But as you're suggesting, I do not have a plan to write books. It's such a big commitment. It's such a big sacrifice. It's the ultimate risk to your personal brand. Because if you have a blog post that sucks, you can change it or take it down. But when you put a book out there, it's your legacy. Yeah. And the thing that drives me whenever I create a blog post or a podcast or a book, the thing that drives me in my mind is I will never let you down. The people who read my book or read my blog, it's going to be worth their time. So it's just as you say, I have this idea, I have this burning question, and it doesn't happen all at once. And that's why when I saw the drone show and I called Mark Simons and I said, I want to write a book, I didn't write the book. It took a year for me to be sure. It took a year for all the dots to come together and say, yes, this is right. This is right. And I'm desperate for people to hear this idea. When it just all of a sudden, it'll just lock in and say, yes, this is the right book. This is what people need right now. It will help them. And I'm desperate to get these ideas out. Now, to answer the other part of your question, I do explore these ideas in blog posts ahead of time. To me, writing, it helps clarify your thinking. And it also is like a research and development lab, because you throw these ideas out into the world and you get feedback. And people say, wow, I love that. Or maybe someone will say, hey, love that, but you forgot this piece. Ooh, that's right. And there was one great example where I wrote a blog post that was going to become part of Marketing Rebellion, a book that I wrote a few years ago. And there was this very brilliant young marketer in Malaysia who wrote me a note back and said, I love these 5 points, but you missed point 6. I said, that is so great. I'm going to put you in the book because it's such a great idea. So that's it, the idea and the writing. It's all part of the evolution of where the book finally ends up.
With the whole notion of being audacious, and which is, again, what the book is about, but it's about not being dull. It's about, doing something, getting attention for the right reasons, something that causes people to go, wow. And I want people to realize that it's not all about the big stunts. You've said that before, and reading the book, it's not just about the stunts. It's about those moments in time that you can add a little bit of awe to your day. And there are, as I said, lots of examples in the book about that. How important then is it, that's at the top end, but how important is it to have the foundations in place before you start going there? Because we live in a world where people, that's a shortcut, that's a hack, let's just go out and be audacious and cut through by being super creative. Yet they haven't built the audience, they haven't done the foundations, they haven't got the connections that they've been working on, they're not on social media. If you're awesome and do some great stuff, that's fantastic. But it's only going to work better if you do a lot of the other things around content, personal branding, being on social media, that side of things.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's something that I address directly. There's a chapter at the end of the book called The Most Important Chapter in the Book. And it talks about sort of bravery, courage, and the organizational culture to do this. But it also talks about, marketing. What are some of the fundamentals of marketing? The price and the place and the promotion, the 4 P's of marketing. Those still are really important. Those are still opportunities for innovation. And there was this example where I walked into this little barbecue restaurant And right in the middle of the restaurant, it wasn't very big. There was a 15-foot, I don't know what that is in metric, but it is a 15-foot, it was twice as big as me, fiberglass pig. So I asked the restaurant owner, I said, what's the deal with this pig? He said, that is my entire marketing program. That at the end of the meal, people just love to take their picture with the pig, especially if there's children. Now, to get to your point, he has to create great food. He has to have great service.
Yep.
The restrooms need to be clean. The prices need to be reasonable. You have to have ample and safe parking. And if you deliver on all those fundamentals, then yes, they're going to want to take that picture and remind other people to come to this restaurant. So, a brand or anything that's audacious without delivering the goods is just a waste of time.
Yeah. So there's the foundational stuff, and the other thing is the mindset. And I'm not so sure you develop this mindset overnight. You gave an example. It's a big company, but obviously companies are run by leaders. And so it's the leaders who have the mindset. And the company is a beauty brand called Elf, which stands for, hang on, let me get it right, eyes, lashes, and face.
Eyes, lips, face.
Lips, face, that's it. Or lashes could be there somewhere as well. And could you give us a bit of a rundown on them and just explain the attitude that they have, that the leaders have imbued into the culture of the business? Because without it, they wouldn't be able to do the things they do.
Well, this was one of the parts of the books I mentioned that really energized me as someone who's been in marketing many, many years. Elf is a more or less sort of low-cost cosmetics company that primarily caters toward young females. And so the CMO came into Elf, and Elf they were doing okay, but they were kind of in a lull, and a lot of people thought, well, their time is over, and they brought in this new CMO, and not only is she rewriting storytelling, as I sort of envisioned in my 3 steps in Audacious, she's really in many ways rewriting how you approach marketing. Ideas like, do we have an ideal target customer? No. We market to everybody. What? I mean, that's like one of the fundamental things you learn in marketing. Riches in the niches, right? and okay, so where are we going to market? Are we going to be on this platform? Are we going to be on this platform? What she says is, we're going to tell our story wherever our customers are. And that may change day to day. Every day is a new day for our marketing department. Like, what? But if you look at these things that sound either sort of provocative and inspiring, or on the other side of the scale, just absolutely bonkers, you realize that she really is tapping into the way the world is right now. I mean, the most important aspect of marketing right now that a lot of people don't talk about is speed. Because and where a lot of marketing today is built on performance marketing. It's optimizing your ads. It's optimizing your SEO. We've been doing this for 25 years now, and this is no longer really like the breakthrough new kind of marketing. It might sound kind of weird, but a lot of this internet social marketing, performance marketing, is becoming old-fashioned because it's not keeping pace with the speed of culture. And there was a quote in one of my other books that you can either keep up with the speed of culture, or you can measure. You probably can't do both. And that is a radical idea. That's a radical idea for most marketing people today. But the Elf has embraced this and said it's more important to be in tune with the culture and the speed of the culture, and that's showing up in their bottom line. They've been the fastest growing company on the New York Stock Exchange 5 years in a row.
Wow.
Not Nvidia, not Microsoft or Apple, a cosmetic company that is selling to young people. And curiously, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal just this week that Elf kind of missed their quarterly earnings for the first time in years and years and years. And the reason is that because they're in touch with the youth culture, and so much of youth culture was on TikTok, when there was talk in America about TikTok going away, conversations about their product went away. So it'll be interesting to see how they recover.
Bounce back.
But they will. They will.
So the message there, Mark, is that it's about rewriting the rules. I mean, being audacious is also about rewriting the rules.
It's about breaking. It's about breaking bad rules for a good reason. And this kind of gets into the part of the book about taboos, right? And again, it's not about being reckless. It's not about being offensive. It's not about doing something illegal. It's about looking at what's uncomfortable, but we really need to talk about this. What's this rule that we follow in our company because we've always done it this way? Or why is dull sort of normal in our industry? And one of the case studies in the book is Liquid Death, which are they available in Australia yet?
I don't think so, but I know the story. Yeah.
I mean, the water market, it's about wholesome and pure and clear. And here this company starts, and the name of the brand is Liquid Death. Now, I will tell you, the number one rule I learned in marketing school was never associate your product with death. And so what they did is they said, why can't we have fun with water? Water is all the same. It's boring. Why can't we have fun with it? And so they do. Everything they do. I mean, and their advertisements, I encourage, even if you live in a part of the world where you don't see the Liquid Death product, go on a YouTube and find some of their ads, and it will just blow your mind. I mean, a lot of them just make you cringe. But I mean, they're being playful and they're fun and they're doing something. They're breaking taboos because these are things that you just never did in the water market before, and it's making people pay attention.
And they got a lot of heavy metal imagery, haven't they, surrounding the brand?
Yes. And it's
in cans
and it's
as well.
And something. I don't think I put this in the book, but I should have. They actually partnered with the last company we talked about, Elf. Now, because again, think about Elf Cosmetics. They're saying, we want to be everywhere our customers are. Their customers right now, who's buying Liquid Death? Their customers, the young people. So they partnered with Liquid Death to create a line of cosmetics called Corpse Paint. Who does that? Who does that?
Yeah, well, there's probably a big emo fraternity out there that would lap that up. The B2B, so a lot of that's B2C, as in business to consumer. A lot of particularly people who are running consultancy types of businesses and come out of corporate, more in the B2B, the business to business space. Obviously, the B2B space shouldn't stand for boring to boring, but is it easier to stand out a little bit more in the B2B space if you are willing to take the chance and be a little more audacious? I mean, obviously, there's a lot more nuance and, a lot of the people who are doing the purchasing, it might be in a company and there's risk averse and there's a whole swag of issues surrounding all of that and paying a bigger ticket item as well. What's your take on being audacious in a B2B world?
Well, I don't know where you stand on this, but you and I are aligned so much philosophically, over the years, that I think there's just this blurring that, yes, there are differences with B2B, especially when the stakes are high. Especially, look, I lived in that world, right? I grew up in that world. And, and it could be a multi-million dollar contract. I mean, you know, I, I, I negotiated for my company a $5 billion contract. And I could tell you, having audacious ads is not going to affect a contract like that. But at the end of the day, it still is about this emotional connection. It is.
Okay.
And especially relationships and people. Because you can only put so much into a contract. And you want to work with people that you think, look, no matter what happens with this contract, I have to know these people will not let me down, right? So, and I think there are lots of examples of how we can just, do something a little bit different. One of my favorite examples in the book, it's a little case study, but I think it's a powerful one. And it's this fellow that was working in B2B, and they're trying to land this big contract, and they just couldn't open the door. And they were running out of time, and it was the holiday season, and nobody was answering calls, and they were just desperate. So what this guy did is he went to a local bakery, and he had them make custom cupcakes. And there was a different cupcake for every day on the calendar. So they sent this box of cupcakes, and they sent this paper that had the story behind every cupcake. So it wasn't like swag. It wasn't like a holiday treat. It was a story, right?
Yep.
So they sent it to this purchasing manager, and they said, please choose your favorite story, your favorite cupcake from this calendar, and let's make that the day we have our first phone call. How can you resist that? And she did. And then not only that, but she shared this with her entire team, and they're all talking about the stories of the cupcake, right? And they ended up landing a massive contract. And it was just doing something, that's off-road, something that's, that's audacious, something that, even like you might think, oh, well, sending cupcakes, well, that was kind of sweet. But it wasn't the cupcakes that sealed the deal. It was the stories. It was the stories is to show we care enough about you do we want to create this new connection with you. We want to create this new relationship. And I've got lots of examples in the book. I made, it was very intentional. I made an effort to create B2B, B2C, nonprofits, a little bit of everything. And there's lots of B2B examples in the book because it's especially when it comes to just thinking about adding awe. What's a little thing we can do to add awe to someone's day, to just create that spark of an emotional connection between us?
I love it. I think we'll finish up on that because that is 100% what it's all about. And just on the cupcakes, the cupcakes were the media in that instance.
That's
really.
right.
So
it was. I think it ended up being $1 billion deal that started with cupcakes.
Wow. That's a great yarn, and something that can be talked about and is being talked about continuously now. Here we go. It's kicking off. Mark, tremendous. Congratulations again on the book. As I said, I got it a week ago, and I've sped read it to get to this interview, and I've highlighted a lot of the specific examples that I can go back and check out and go down rabbit holes in internet.
And we did even talk about the fact that the book itself is audacious because has a first in the world cover.
It has.
That is an augmented reality experience that the book cover keeps changing. The book is never the same way twice. So it's something that I was pretty excited to create a book that is itself audacious.
and lots of QR codes to take you to the down the rabbit holes of the examples in the book. And there's a guy, a Canadian speaker called Scott Stratton, who once wrote a book called "QR Codes Kill Kittens." I'm not sure what Scott would be thinking about I
know Scott. I bet he wrote that before the pandemic.
Absolutely, I think he did.
QR codes have a whole new life now.
They do indeed, they do. Mark, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show again. Thank you for your time and good luck with the book.
Thank you so much, Trevor.